So I think we have everybody here. So I want to introduce, first of all, I would like to say thank you for Alessandra for helping organizing this event. Yeah.
Thank you, Gabriela.
So let's see. Thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We will try to answer as many questions in the end as we can. So just to do some, just to summarize what we are going to do. So we are going to have the panel for about an hour, and then we open for Q&A, so we can ask questions. So again, I have a few questions just to get a sense of the audience. Like, how many people here are students? And yeah, okay, cool. How many people are looking for a job? Cool. How many people are looking for a data-related position? Everybody, okay, cool. How many people here use R? Yeah. How many people here has heard about Our Ladies? Wow, cool. Okay, so awesome. So if you use R and there is a meetup called Our Ladies, you are more than welcome to join. I run the Our Ladies San Francisco, and I run the Our Ladies Global Organization as well. So you can find more information about the meetup either through the Our Ladies webpage, ourladies.org, or if you go to meetup.com and then look for Our Ladies San Francisco, then you'll find the meetup. We have probably an event next month and then the following month as well. I think probably May, we are going to have Hadley Wickham. So if you use ggplot, you probably know Hadley. If you use Tidyverse, you probably know Hadley. So anyway, so that's all the announcing that I would like to do. I would like to introduce you to Becca. Becca is going to be our moderator, so please join me.
Hello, thanks Gabrielle, and welcome to Lyft, everyone. I'm Rebecca Carroll. I currently lead the marketing analytics team here at Lyft, and I've been here about 3 years now. Before that, I spent about 8 years as an aerospace engineer for Lockheed Martin. And along the way, I also spent a few years as a marketing consultant for a small startup called Rosetta. I'm really excited to be moderating this panel tonight. I think we have a really great group of women with a lot of experience to share with y'all. So with that, I'll let them come up on stage. All right. So I want to hand it off to each of our panelists to sort of go through their background, who they are, and what got them to where they are today.
Cool, I can start. So my name is Gabriela. I'm a data scientist and founder of Our Ladies. So as I mentioned before, so Our Ladies are a worldwide organization to promote diversity in the art community. So now we have over 80 chapters all over the world in more than 40 countries and a lot of members. So I help leading the organization and giving support. My background is statistics, so I did a bachelor in statistics, a master in statistics, and a master's in epidemiology. And then I worked in several startups in the past few years, like leading teams and working on data engineering and modeling. So that's pretty much it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie. I'm a data scientist here at Lyft. I joined about 1.5 years ago. Before that, I did my undergrad in France and came to the US about 3 years ago. I did a master's at UC Berkeley in operation research, so I have a background around optimization and also machine learning. Since I joined Lyft, I've been mostly working on driver acquisition, so doing optimization and also some predictive modeling.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sivan. I'm Israeli. That's the name. I lead the data science team in a little startup called Wellio. You may not have heard about it because it's pretty small and pretty new. We are trying to help people eat better and healthier through data science and machine learning. And that's all I'm going to say for now. So if you want to learn more, talk about it later. My background's in statistics. I have an undergrad in industrial engineering and a master in statistics and a PhD in statistics. So yes, I'm a real nerd all the way. My daily work, I guess I've been leading teams for the last 6 to 7 years. I really like the technical leadership space. Before coming to Wellio, I was in a company called the Climate Corporation, which was doing agriculture technology and building recommendation system over there. Started as a data scientist, led a few of the teams, started a few of the teams, and then migrated to the food tech world, which is kind of the same space, sort of. That's it. I really, really, really like data science, so I hope this is going to be a useful hour for everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kasia. I work as a data scientist at Medium. I've been there for about 4 months now. Previously, I was at 5 Stars, a marketing platform. And before that, I was at Unidol, which is a SaaS platform for startup competitions. My background is in theoretical physics. I finished my master's almost 3 years ago. I got it from University College London, and then I moved here to San Francisco. In addition to that, I'm a PyLadies organizer, and I also am doing right now a Delta Analytics Fellowship.
I am Katie. I am currently a data scientist at Reddit. My background is actually in linguistics. I was super interested in not only what people say, but how they say it and what that says about them. To make a long story short, I finished my undergraduate degree and felt super burnt out on school, so I moved to San Francisco to work in tech for a little bit. Ended up working for a natural language search startup on their query parser, and from that kind of pivoted into more of a pure data role. Spent some time in advertising, and I've now been at Reddit for almost a year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tammy, and my background is also in statistics. I got a master's and a bachelor's in statistics. My work experience, I worked at Allstate Insurance Company's research center out in Menlo Park for 4 years, doing a wide variety of problems, pricing, cross-sell, fraud, figuring out where the brush fires are, just all kinds of problems. And then in the last 3 years, I actually worked at Galvanize as a lead instructor, a director of data science, and their head of educational design. So I started that program at Galvanize when it was just one itty-bitty cohort in San Francisco, and then scaled it across the country. So ask me about that if you want to know more. And then right now, I'm actually working also at an itty-bitty startup called Enki. Enki basically creates curriculum for people to do 5-minute workouts to upskill their developer data skills. So that's what I'm up to now. And I'm also a Springboard mentor.
Great. Thanks, Tammy. Can you all tell us a little bit about how you got your first data-related job? Did you study it in school, or what in your background helped you prepare for this role?
Would you like to ask someone specifically?
I want you all to answer. I want to know exactly what your first job was.
Reverse order? Okay, sure. Yeah, I studied statistics. I thought it was very useful. I think when you have strong theoretical understanding of statistics, the algorithms come more naturally to you, and you also just have an analytical thinking. And a lot of what I enjoy about data science is exploratory data analysis and plotting. I think it's an underrated skill. That's my pitch. And so I think a lot of that is in statistics. I think what it didn't maybe quite prepare me for was the art part of data science. When you do problem sets, you have a target, the data set's pretty clean, and when you're out in the wild, you don't even know what the target is. You decide what the target is, you decide what to use. And so that, I fortunately had a lot of bright coworkers and mentors, and just learned by doing. So,
So my background prepared me in ways that I didn't realize that it would. I originally thought I was going to be a dialectologist, and I took a course in what was called quantitative sociolinguistics, which is basically building a regression model to understand how different social factors will affect the way people end up talking. And in doing that, I learned R. I thought it was super cool, and I wanted to do more of that. And I was also very fascinated by the idea that you could represent language mathematically. So that kind of led me into a subfield of linguistics called computational linguistics, which in industry is often called NLP. And using those skills, I learned to program and ended up working in search because of that.
So my background semi-prepared me for the role. As I mentioned, my background is in theoretical physics, so it helps to have a quantitative background. I didn't necessarily learn many useful skills for the job, so I didn't learn Python or SQL or anything like that during my undergrad. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So in London, if you have a good degree from a good school, you usually end up in either consulting or investment banking. I didn't want to do either. So during my undergrad, I did a couple of internships in social impact measurement. So I worked with charities and NGOs. I looked at gathering metrics, measuring impact, that sort of thing. I did some work with the World Health Organization. And then after I graduated, I spent almost 2 months in Kenya. And that's when I realize that this is not what I wanted to do full-time, and that, you know, the charity world just had like too many great areas for me. So I decided I'm going to go somewhere for profit where people are very open about, you know, wanting to make money. So I had a contact here in San Francisco. I started talking to them, and we kind of figured out a 6-month data analysis internship, and that's how I got started. I had the chance to learn Python and improve my SQL, which I taught myself earlier on the job, and I started using all of the math that I learned during my undergrad and during my master's.
Okay, so I already identified I'm the geek, I think. So during my PhD, I studied Bayesian statistics, not specifically non-parametric, and I applied it in the PhD. I was applying it to crime data, which is spatial temporal data sets. And I really enjoyed that part, and I was really intrigued by kind of more advanced machine learning models. So when I was looking for my first job, I was looking for a job that will not ask me to explain what a t-statistics is or a p-value is, even though I can tell you that out of the 3 interviews I did in 1 week, 2 had asked me to clearly explain what a p-value is, which is good, but not what I wanted to do. So the third one asked me to try to explain how I would model the weather. And I thought, oh, that's pretty neat. That's a hard problem. I don't think I can solve it on the spot within a 30-minute interview. But that was intriguing for me. So I looked for a job where I could actually apply what I learned in my PhD. So the first job was really utilizing a lot of spatial temporal models. So I think in that sense, taking my PhD helped. The other thing was I did a lot of teaching while I was a PhD student and a master's student, and I really liked the communication part of it, to trying to explain to people what a p-value is, what a t-statistic is, why it's important. And I think I still use that skill set. Maybe I'm not explaining what a p-value is, but I'm definitely explaining advanced models, what they mean, the results, the data, the EDA, which I support that claim that EDA is undervalued a lot. So I think teaching has prepared me a lot to like communicate with non-technical people in the real world.
Yeah, so I think my background led me pretty logically to a data-related job. I have a very broad engineering training from France, and then I studied operation research at Berkeley, so did optimization, probabilities, machine learning classes, coding classes, and yeah, I was super interested in becoming a data analyst or a data scientist because I think it brings like together a lot of theoretical knowledge with very applied problems. Very challenging. And yeah, very interesting. And so it's pretty logically that I joined Lyft as a data scientist just after graduating, and this is my first job, so yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of like natural. So I was a statistician before, so as we were called, right? So like to become a data scientist was a natural path. But my first job, when I was looking for my job, I was trying to find a place where I could use my skills as a statistician and also use some of other skills that I had as like teaching and like talking to people. So I did some music producer for a few years back then. So, you know, like, so I had this natural way of like talking and communicating, and even though English is not my first language, but so I worked at this company where I did a lot of like, I had a lot of clients, and I was teaching them on how to use our own software, sharing my knowledge, and yeah, that's pretty much my first job.
Great. So we have a lot of varying experience across the board, but diving into starting out a career in data science, what skills should a recent graduate acquire to pursue a degree or to pursue a career in data science? Tammy, do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, I helped grow out the galvanized data science program across the country, and the curriculum, I think, was good, and it was based largely on Python, which I think is a really in-demand skill, although I'm definitely an R lady. I love R. I'm never going to abandon that. Python's really in demand, and also having a good enough statistical foundation to learn the more complex algorithms. I think like those two are sort of your fundamental pillars that you want to start with. And from there, after that, I think just getting a lot of hands-on practice. So the galvanized curriculum was really 6 hours a day of coding, actually. You only spent 2 hours listening to other people. And I think that's your instructors. And I think, I mean, that program was well designed. I'm biased, but I think it was well designed. So I would encourage you all to really get a lot of keyboard time and to think about problems, new problems, when you start out your career. But, yeah.
I definitely agree that like statistical thinking is one of the most important skills you can have. But I'll personally advocate for SQL. Every job I've ever had, I've had to write a ton of SQL. Relational databases are still a really popular and durable technology, and being able to navigate one is probably going to be important no matter what you do.
Last one on SQL. Learn SQL and learn it well. It doesn't matter how good you are at Python. If you're not good at SQL, that will really, really slow you down.
Okay. I'll advocate for the soft skills, critical thinking. It's not exactly the same as statistical thinking. Being able to take a problem and decompose it to components to understand how to solve it in an iterable manner makes a data scientist much more efficient, and probably a skill that a lot of people I see who are junior don't have, and hence require a lot more kind of hand-holding through these things in the beginning. I think managers have the same problem sometimes, to be critical thinkers, to take a really hard problem that the organization has and like go down to like the fundamental, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, here is how I'm going to approach it. So it's not something most people are born with. So if you don't have it, that's normal. And you develop it over time with like trying things and learning that, oh, I can't solve it this way, I have to try it this other way. And the other way to learn it is through mentors who can speed up the learning of how to do that efficiently.
So Marie, just switching topics, what do you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning? Is there anything you would have done differently or anything that was really good for your career?
Sure. I don't have a lot of perspective on my career, but I can try to say what's been useful, I guess, on a daily basis when I'm working on a project. So I feel like when you're in school or when doing competitions, sometimes like the scope of the project is really well defined. Your data is pretty clean. You know exactly what you're trying to predict, what you're trying to solve for. And when I arrived here at Lyft, you discovered that a lot of problems are actually very open-ended. Even the team that asks you like to build a model or an algorithm is not really sure what they want. And so I feel like it's helped me to really try to clarify what they want, what the objective is, what the expected output is. Because one of my first projects, I just started doing something and then I realized it was not exactly what I wanted. So I kind of had to start over from scratch, which is fine as you still learn, but sometimes you lose a little bit of time. So yeah, I guess that would be one piece of advice before you start a project, try to really clarify what people want. And then maybe also when I started, I always try to do something really perfectly the first time. And then discovered that, again, maybe it took a lot of time, and then the team didn't really know what I was doing. So I feel like a good thing is also to try to do something that's not completely perfect, but a first version that works, that maybe brings you like 80% the way there, and then try to iterate with the team once you have a first version working of your algorithm. Yeah, that would be my piece of advice.
Does anybody else have anything they wish they knew that would have helped them out?
This is more general career advice, but I think it's really important to just tell people what you want from your career to the extent that you know it. I really wish I had realized early on that if I didn't want to work on a particular thing, if I tell people that, like they're not going to make me do it. Or if they do, like maybe that's a sign that you shouldn't be at that company. But being transparent about your goals and where you want to go, people can't help you do that if they don't know what it is.
Perfect. So there's a lot of people, we saw a lot of hands in the audience of people looking for jobs. Do you have any advice on how one should prepare for a data science interview? Tammy, as an educator, probably have some good advice.
So at Galvanize, I can talk about what we got critiqued about. So about our students, like what our students needed. And they were like, your students need more product sense. They need more business sense. Like, yeah, you guys are really good at churning out people who are good at Python and technical and can regurgitate what a KNN classifier is, right? I have to say that I didn't feel like I really cracked that nut with Galvanize, but I mean, I think bringing some focus to that is important. There was, I don't know if you guys have heard of William Chen, but he mentioned this on Quora, and I thought this was a really great post about this. Use the product and think about it really critically before you go into the interview. So like just know everything you can about it, use it, and then think about what metrics they're probably using to define success, how they're thinking about improving it. And just like if you go through that entire mental process very, very deeply, I think you'll find yourself much more prepared when you get there, because they're going to ask you questions about that. And some of them are actually kind of predictable.
I've interviewed many people and been interviewed. I think ask what the interview is going to be like who am I going to meet? What are, how many people, how many interviews am I going to go through? How many rounds do you do? Sometimes you'll find out that they do 3 or 4 rounds and you're like, nope, not doing 3 or 4 rounds. Personal story, no. So be prepared, it's fine to ask for these questions. It's okay to ask who is going to interview me. Is it going to be a technical interview? Is it not going to be a technical interview? I think those are really fair questions to ask, and it's not fair from a company to say, oh, we don't know yet. That's not a reasonable answer. You should know, even if you know 2 days in advance, they should tell you 2 days in advance, because at some point they make that decision. So hopefully not the day of. So ask what the interview is going to be like, what parts are technical, what does that mean technical, am I going to code, is there a challenge I take home, do we do a challenge on the board, is there going to be 3 people in the room with me, 1 person in the room with me. I now am so versed in giving, when I interview someone, I literally say it, I tell them. And 1 person is going to talk to you, and like the this person in the company had this kind of experience. You should look them up on LinkedIn. It's cool to look on LinkedIn to understand what these people's backgrounds are so you can understand better. But I also support the use the product or open the website, learn what they do. If you cannot use the product, like for example, when I worked in the Climate Corporation, I'm not a farmer, so I can't use the product. But I did come somewhat prepared, right? I knew what the product was about. I could think about what the challenges are. And when I was asked, what am I most excited about the company, I had a clear answer why I like that company. So I support these things. You're not going to get to be a wizard in some statistical algorithm that they need within the day that they give you to prepare for it. So don't. That's okay. If that's what they look for, an algorithm, one that you don't know, that's probably not the right company for you.
I'll also say for take-home assignments, if you ever have to do one, what I find differentiates take-home assignments is more showing process. If you do unit tests, include them. If you have some kind of internal monologue, put that in a comment in your notebook that you send to them. Make a deck to present your results, showing that you have some kind of presentation skill or that you can just communicate well, I think really differentiates a take-home assignment.
So what are some things to keep in mind when looking for a position, especially when it comes to evaluating the culture of a company?
Okay, one thing that I do personally, I go to Glassdoor and then I go through all the reviews from the employees. I look at all the benefits that they have. And sometimes I do some kind of like spreadsheet where I, kind of compare just to make sure that I'm going to interview at a company that has the same values as I have. So that's pretty important. And try to meet with someone from the company to understand a little bit more, like what is the work-life balance? Do you have family, kids, and does your boss have kids? So anyway, so those kind of questions is always good to keep in mind.
I've come prepared for this one. I even asked a few colleagues to sort of do a more empirical-driven answer. So, because I think it's a really good question and actually quite hard to evaluate a company's culture from an interview. I would say that probably everyone's putting their best face in the interview, so you're probably like getting the best, right? So it's hard to evaluate. So here are empirically driven answers from people that I asked and myself. So. Ask how projects get chosen for people in your position, who gets to choose them, why, how. It tells a lot about how decisions are being made in the team and in general in the company. I have like a weird one, which is how are all hands being done in the company? Like how are topics related? Like, for example, are topics asked from the people in the company? Is there at the end, is there an open debate? You can ask Q&A from the CEO. Will he answer or she answer? So I find all hands to be really interesting moment in the companies. And I've been in companies where the CEO is very open and willing to take any question from anyone with no preparation, which I like. And then I've also been in companies where that was not the case and questions had to be well in advance and well prepared. And that's a different culture, I guess. What are career path? How are they decided for people in my positions? Again, that kind of conversation tells you a little bit about if the company has thought about this. Do they think about career path? Where do I fit into this? I'll give two more. I have like 7, so it's a lot. Okay. How do the team evaluate themselves? Like, is there sprint points? Which the person who told me about this said, that's a wrong answer. So that's a wrong answer, apparently. So, and another one that I thought was really good is how does the company invest in employees? Is there a teaching, learning opportunities? Do they send people to conferences, or will they support them if they want to go to conferences? I know personally learning on the job is something really important for me. So if a company says, well, we don't have the time, it's not our highest priority, that's sort of a turnoff for me. So I really like that one. And the rest I'll tell individually.
So personally, I ask a lot of things about things like benefits, because that's the fun things, aside from like career progress, mentoring, growth, et cetera, And one thing I found a huge red flag was unlimited PTO. So I would ask the companies, like, how much time people take off? How much time have you taken off? And I've had some companies who very openly told me their statistic, and I've had one company who said, oh, we don't know, we don't track it. And I thought that was highly suspicious, because they probably do track it. But also, I've had one job offer, and I was asking more questions about health insurance, and I had the person sounding very annoyed when she was answering my questions, and I thought that wasn't a good sign. I've had one interview when I turned up, and on the day they told me I'm interviewing for a completely different team than I thought I was, which really threw me off. But things like that are usually red flags.
Great. So overall, I think we can agree that it would be great to see more women in management positions in data. Do any of you have any thoughts on how we can increase women in management and experienced careers at the executive levels? Sivan, maybe as an experienced manager?
I've come prepared for this one too. It's because they told me they're going to ask me this question, so I have come prepared. There was one answer I gave before, which is, if you fire all the men, only women will be there. But it's probably not going to happen. So let's not go there. Okay. So one thing I would say is hold your company accountable, meaning you should ask how many women, if you don't know, if it's a bigger company, ask how many women are in leadership position, how many women are interviewing for leadership positions, how many women on the panel for these leadership positions, because it matters, because they've shown in research that when people come into interviews, if they don't see people like them in the interview, they usually don't want that job. So yeah, in panels for leadership position, there should be good representation of everyone, not just women and men, other types of diversity groups. I would say that's one. Help other women, be supportive, meaning if people get promoted, be supportive. Be supportive all the time. But I think it's kind of nice to be supportive for women. If your friend gets promoted and she's a female, that's great. Help her. It's not an easy transition into leadership from being an individual contributor. So having a group that supports is really useful. And I personally found it useful to have mentors who are women who helped me figure out how to do it. So be supportive of each other. I had another good advice from my boss who said, give your opinion and, do what you think is right. On a personal level, I give my opinion a lot. And I have not found it to be a problem. Like in companies I worked, I expressed my opinions quite freely and openly when I think things are right and things are wrong. And when they are wrong, I will try to correct them and I'll show initiative even if it's not my job. And I'm not saying that you should do it because you're a woman. You should do it even if you're a man. But take initiative when you can. Like opening an Our Ladies community, I think is amazing, or being in Pi Lady is amazing. So doing things like that internally in your company is also a way to sort of outshine and be a little bit more of a leader in the company. Again, leaders doesn't mean necessarily I'm the manager of this amazing, huge group. It is also, I am a technical leader. I am recognized for my technical abilities because I speak out in technical discussions and I share my opinion and people understand that I am the expert in this particular area. Or opening a little group of, in my previous job, I noticed that a lot of women in technical positions don't talk, they have a lot of questions and they talk to me, but they don't talk to each other. So I opened a little group where we would meet once every few weeks and we would discuss all of our problems and issues and what, some of them are technical, but majority of them were not. So, and no one asked me to do it and no one promoted me for it and I didn't really care. I did it so that we would have that opportunity. So find those opportunities, bring yourself to positions where you're noticed. It's okay. It's like, I know we have a tendency to not want to take credit for what we do or we don't want to outshine everyone else. But you know what? Outshine everyone else. So what? Yeah, you want to get promoted, you have to speak out. You have to be a little bit more vocal. I'm not saying shout, but I am saying, be a little bit louder in conversations.
Thanks.
That's my answer.
Yeah, great answer. So networking is pretty important in this industry. We're all here to do a little bit of that tonight. So how can you build a solid network in data science or analytics?
So I think it's events like this. It's where you meet a lot of people, and then communities like, as Sivan mentioned, Our Ladies, Pi Ladies, women in machine learning, data science. So there are several communities that you can be part of. And from there, you start getting to know other people, and then your network gets bigger. That's it's the best way that I can see. So I met a lot of people through meetups and the events like this, and people who help me on finding a new job or referring me for a new position, for example. So
I would also add volunteering opportunities. So there are a lot of organizations out there that do volunteering with data. There is DataKind. There is Delta Analytics that I'm now a part of. There is Data for Democracy, and so on and so forth. They are great communities. Often people will actually work with you. They will see what you're like to work with and what your skill set is, and that sometimes may make it easier to find mentors, mentees, collaborators, and jobs.
let me add just one thing that I remember. So one of my last positions, I hired 2 or 3 people from the Our Ladies because I already knew how they work together and work with me. So for me, was much easier to hire someone that I knew beforehand than going through all the process, with someone that I didn't know. So just to give you an example, how networking is very powerful and good.
I would also add that networking can just be friendship. It might just be you have a shared interest with someone, you want to talk to them more, so you get coffee with them sometimes, or you have lunch. A place of genuine connection like that can count as networking too.
Women in machine learning data science is where Gabriela and I met and started to it's a Slack channel. I mean, they also have meetups, but there's a huge Slack community in there of amazing women, and they work in all various positions, from a chief scientist in, Aaron. H2O, right. Silly. Okay. Yes, the chief scientist of H2O is one of the co-founder of it. And through people who are in the beginning of their careers, I highly recommend you Google women in machine learning data science in San Francisco. I have no gain in it. I'm just a member. But I found it to be extremely useful and very, very nice. And even if you don't like to network and the word network makes you cringe, that's really a Slack channel. So, that's the least amount of human interaction you can have.
I would just like to add that I've been to a few meetups like this, Women in Data Science, and on top of networking and meeting new people, I think it's useful to see what other companies are trying to solve, what kind of tools they're using, what kind of metrics they're trying to solve for, and I think it's always nice to meet new people, but also understand what are other people doing in other companies, because I'm only doing this, but what would other people do?
Great. So we've talked a little bit about career development. Mentorship is obviously a big part of that. What can you do to be a mentor, find a mentor? How do you define what a good mentor is?
I don't think mentorship needs to be something super formal. In the same line as my comment that networking can just be a friendship. Mentorship can just be like you work with someone on a project and you learn a lot from them. They don't even have to formally say like, I am your mentor. You can learn something from everyone you work with, and I think that counts as mentorship.
I actually have formal mentors. Sorry.
That's good. That's even better.
No, I guess I call those friends. So I found them through various manners. Actually, I also mentee people from the Slack channel. Just people literally just Slacked me and said, "Can you have lunch with me? Can you talk to me about career? Can you?" And yeah, I do that. I totally am game for things like that. I think other people would be open in there as well. So. Yeah, sometimes literally just emailing that person and asking, like someone that you think is an interesting person and asking for lunch or advice, they would do it. You would be amazed. But I also gained some of my mentors at work or previous work, and they have been amazing in my career. And I think some of it is connection. Yeah, you just like find it. And others is just... there's so few, for me at least, there's so few women in like executive positions. And when I met one, I was like, okay, be my mentor, be my mentor. But I also have men who are mentors, and they're amazing as well. They've been like really, really helping me like develop my career, help me in moments where transitions or decision making. So I would say if you like someone, you like what they do, try emailing. I mean, worst comes to worst, they won't answer. That's the worst that can happen.
All right, so switching gears to some of the challenges of working in this industry, what are your thoughts on being a good caregiver and also balancing that with having a thriving career in data science?
Only two women in here.
We kind of assigned this question for both of us because we both have children. And so, wow, that's tough. Okay, so I have a 20-month-old baby, still a baby. So for me, it's very important to, be at home by 5 p.m., to have dinner with the family and then have weekends with my family, so I don't work on weekends. So, for me, it's like you have to set the boundaries right off, like from the interview, like when you get an offer, then you kind of like set the boundaries, say, hey, this is like what I need to make this work. So I need, like my last job was, because I was commuting, so I was like, I need to work from home at least once a week. I have to be at home by this time, so please, I'm going to block my calendar. Don't schedule anything after 5 p.m., for example. So I think it's all about setting boundaries, and like one thing that we were talking about is like, if you have children, make sure that your manager has children as well. And and not only this, but because some parents, they don't split 50-50. So, in the end, it's like almost 90% one side and then 10% for the other side. So make sure which percentage, your boss is in. And for me, the biggest challenge was to find to have a manager where they could understand, this is important for me. And if I'm happy here, if I'm happy because I have boundaries, I'll be happy at work, and also have some kind of like flexibility. So it's very important to have some kind of flexibility. It doesn't mean that we are working less. We work a lot. We are much more focused. And, we do work like after the children go to sleep, then we are online working like from 7 to 9 or 7 to 10. So, in the end, we work a lot. So I don't know if I said a lot of stuff that makes sense, but yeah, that's my general opinion about, and it's a challenge, especially for the startup world.
Yeah, I have two kids. I have a 10-year-old and an amazing, beautiful 2.5-year-old. Actually, they're both amazing and beautiful. But, the little one is the little one. So I've been a mother for a while. I was the only grad student who was a mother in my department, so I'm used to kind of being the only one with the kid. I second everything you said, Gabriela. It's true. I would say that when I interviewed for the first job, I talked to the CEO. He didn't have children then. He has a child now. But he didn't have a children then. And I asked him, what do you think, is having a child an advantage in this company or a disadvantage? Because I was very blunt, like I am. So he said, well, if you can juggle grad school with a child, you're probably pretty good at prioritizing and having your time managed correctly. So you're going to be fine here. And I thought that was a lovely answer, and it really stuck with me. So I definitely second the opinion that you should go to places where it's appreciated, that fact. It's not a disadvantage to be a mother or a parent. And I joined a tiny startup, but the two co-founders are both parents. And so they get it. They understand when I say in the morning, well, my child is sick, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to work from home the whole day. It doesn't mean I'm not going to work, I'm going to pretend I'm working for the whole day. It means I'm going to work, and at the same time, I'm going to make sure my child is fine. So having it, I'm not necessarily saying the manager has to be, but the environment has to be supportive of it, because it's not easy. And I have a very good partner in life who supports me and helps and carries the burden 50-50, actually, to be honest, or maybe even 60, and I'm 40. So he really does support a lot, so it helps, but having an environment that's more understanding is very, very helpful. And not just understanding, but understands that, yeah, I have my 9 hours a day. I'm going to kick butt in those 9 hours. There's no 1 hour and a half coffee break during my 9 hours. There's none such thing for me. But yeah, knowing how to prioritize your time, you become amazing when you become a mom. You're like, oh my God, I know how to prioritize. Before I had this hour and a half, I would like kick back and do nothing. Now I'm like, okay, an hour and a half, I'm going to, grocery shopping, build a model, finish homework assignment with the older son, and evaluate the model. So you kick ass in that hour and a half. So you learn how to prioritize a lot better when you have a lot more going on. So it comes with experience and children, apparently, for me at least.
All right, so this job can be kind of stressful at times. Has anybody faced imposter syndrome, been nervous about anything, and how have you worked to overcome it? Anybody have? Yeah?
All the time. I mean, how is this even a question? So I think it doesn't help that I started a new job 4 months ago. So I constantly am learning new things, and everyone at my work is very understanding that I'm not where they still are. But I do think about it every day. And one thing that really, really helped me in one of my previous roles is that I had a weekly one-on-one with my manager. And I had to complete Google Doc with 3 questions beforehand. And one of them was, what were your 3 wins in the past week? And I found that really helped, because I always focus on the things that are not going well, on the things I need to learn, on the things that have gone horribly wrong, and on things that I can do right now. But doing that sort of reflection really helps me to realize, okay, so actually I've done some things in the past week, and, looking 3-6 months back, I wouldn't have been able to do them. And I am helping people and delivering in the company.
Yeah, I really agree with that, focusing on the positives. I think women especially tend to think about how lucky they've gotten and all the opportunities they've been given and all the people that help them. And it's really appropriate to think about that and to be grateful for the opportunities you've been given, but you really need to focus on what you've done with those opportunities and the actions you've taken to take advantage of them and also to deserve them. Luck is something that you can kind of make by just putting yourself in the right place the right number of times. Eventually something good's going to happen to you.
Let me just add this. So for several years, I would say, I think it was over a year, I would get home and then, say to my partner, I still have the job. Nobody fired me, so they didn't find out. I'm still there. So yes, it's like a small win every day. So yeah, so it's like every day. It's kind of like the way I still feel. So it's like it's silly, I know, but it's like I don't know why, but we all for sure have it, some way or not, in a larger scale or in a very small scale. So anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think you should, for me, that's kind of motivating. Teams I build, I try to find people who know everything that I don't, complement me. So they need to know lots of other things, which I find to be very cool, and usually they're much smarter than me. And that's great. That means I have, endless opportunity to learn from them. But when you're a manager, you also have to represent these amazingly smart people in meetings and oh, they built this model I've never built it, and now I need to present it to everyone in the room because it's a summary of what they did. So I actually, I try to make the positive out of it because you want people around you to be smart. You want them to be smarter. You need to be able to learn from the people around you. If you're in a job where you're the smartest, you're probably bored. I would guess. Maybe not. I would be bored at least. So yeah, maybe you're feeling a little bit oh, I'm not the smartest in the room, but you know what? Great. So learn from all these people around you. They have endless, it's like school forever. Everyone can teach you. I like it. 3 degrees, so I really like learning.
Yeah, and people don't know what you don't know until you tell them. So a lot of times people will assume that you know everything that they know, and then you know more. And you might be doing the same thing to other people, but actually people have different overlapping areas of knowledge and then other areas of knowledge that are totally independent. So you might be the only person on your team that knows some particular skill set, and that's a really important thing to remember.
So do any of you have any additional stories you can share about being a woman in the tech industry, or what would you say has been your biggest obstacle in getting where you are today? Nobody's had any obstacles. Fantastic.
You want to go? I several times I'm the only woman in a conference room with a room full of men. And something that I learned, so now, if they interrupt me, I say, hey, sorry, I'm speaking. So, something that you learn as you go, it's to kind of to say your voice or to tell whatever you are thinking and make sure that they are listening to you. I don't know if I had a lot of obstacles, per se, for being a woman, but I can tell, I can see some men getting together and having lunch, and I'm the only one there by myself. And then sometimes I do invite myself, hey, can I go? So I'm a little more active now than I was before. So before I would be in my corner, and now it's no.
Something that's happened to me is sometimes I think people are a little too nice to me, which sounds weird. But you might get a review that they'll be like, oh, everything is good, and they won't give you anything to work on or improve on. It's really important, I think, to push for critical feedback that is not critical as in mean, but as in something that you can actually focus on and figure out how to take your work to the next level.
All right, so we're going to wrap up in a few to save time for questions, but wanted to ask you all what your favorite thing was about working in data science or analytics.
So maybe this goes all the way back to statistics at Berkeley, but when I first found R, I was like, wow, all this theory is actually useful. I can use it to figure stuff out. And maybe that sounds really simple, but it was just a breakthrough feeling, and I became really passionate and driven to learn these things and use them. So I love that we can ask questions about the data endlessly and then sort of go from there. About any data set, we get to play in everyone's backyard. I think that's also very cool.
For me, one of the coolest things about working in data science is constantly having to challenge your own assumptions and being surprised by what you find. Something that happens a lot the more you build models is it will be wrong in a way that is like, it actually makes sense, and it makes you think about the problem in a different way. And sometimes it's kind of funny, or sometimes it's actually kind of insightful. And it's always cool to see that happen.
So I quite like that I get to prove people wrong with data, which is always fun. But on a more serious note, I like having some sort of evidence to tell people how the product is or isn't working and what we should do. And it's always quite fun to talk to executives and talk to them about what the company should do.
I like the puzzles. Some of it is like the technical puzzles that we need to solve, but some of it is the communication puzzle, like, okay, deep learning model, CNN, blah, 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 condense it in 5 minutes to the executive team. And I'm like, okay. So that's another puzzle, and it's quite challenging to try to explain it. So both the technical, figure out what model, figure out the data, and the figure out how to communicate it well to people and its advantages and disadvantages. I had another one. I think the other one was that I get to work on I like to challenge myself. So every time I pick a work, it has to be in a completely different world, one that I have never seen the data and I haven't thought about the domain, and it has to be completely different. So for example, in the climate, I led weather modeling, and then I led remote sensing, and then I led experimental design, and I literally went into all different directions because that's what I like about statistics. It's like you can take the skill set and you can transfer it to different domains, and learning about the domain is the most awesome part. So for me, I have to be challenged by the data. The data has to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I'm surprised that I'm using my classes from Berkeley and Friends that much, actually, and then I can use some theoretical knowledge at my work. And also, I think it's pretty fun to work with data. Whenever you start a project, you never know exactly how it's going to work, and even though you've worked on a very similar project, you always end up finding new challenges, something you hadn't seen in your previous project, and then it's also very challenging to understand why it's not working, why it's working, how can I engineer my features better to make it work better, which algorithm would be better. Yeah, I think it's always a lot of fun to just work with the data and try to make the most out of it.
For me, it's kind of like the flexibility, as Sivan was saying. So you can work in a bank, or you can work in an advertisement company, or you can teach, or you can, so you have endless opportunities. So you become more knowledgeable about the topics, like the domain, and you are always learning something new. Another thing that I like is it's such a good power to have. People think you are you are doing magic, or have no idea what we are doing, but it's all look pretty. So I like this mystery side of the data science. And then also one thing that we do also a lot is to communicate the results. How do you translate the technical part to a non-technical audience? How do you show your results? So for me, it's all about flexibility. So you don't have to do only one thing, but you can do a lot of things.
So lastly, are any of your companies hiring? Yes, come talk to all of them afterwards. All right, well, I want to thank all of you guys for sharing your thoughts. I want to open up to Q&A. If anybody has a particular question for the panel as a whole or a certain panelist, raise your hand. I'll come around. Might need a couple more.
Hi, thank you for all the sharings. So I have a question. So as a data scientist, I find that there's a lot of time that I was put into the project that was really important to the team, but I don't particularly interested in. So I have some 10% time to do some side project, but I want to do more. So do you have any suggestion about asking my boss or asking the team to support my side project? Thank you.
Do you have to ask them for permission? I'm seriously asking. Like, my suggestion for you is don't ask for the permission. Just do the project you want. Like, that 10%, do it. Just do it. And then what? You finish it, you show it, and if it's awesome, they're going to be so happy. And if it's not, it's your 10%. You're welcome to use it however you want, apparently. So you learned something along the way. Your boss should be very supportive of you learning. That's great. Everyone wins.
Hi. So I'm in a weird and unique situation where I'm in a small scaling startup where, as a token science, like stats person in the entire company, I now get to grow a team. So how did you guys learn to become good managers, and how do you like hire good people? Like this is like the biggest hurdle I have, not data at this point in time. So do you have any words of wisdom?
Find mentors. I'm so grateful for people who've been through that. Like, you know, I hope you're not the token statistician, like you said. Okay, well, you're probably good at it, so good. A good statistician, and now you're transitioning into a leadership role, a management role. So first off, it's different. It's going to be different. There's a good book that's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Highly recommend it. It's exactly from that transition. Finding a mentor, someone who is a manager, who've been through this like road, is helpful for you on a mental process, because actually being a manager is mentally exhausting. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're supposed to grow a team from scratch. Finding talent, as any recruiter. How many recruiters are in the room? Hands up, the recruiters. I'm sure there are a few. How many of you would agree that this is the hardest job in the Bay Area? Yes, our hardest job in the Bay Area. It is actually, you're in the worst place for this because the talent gets snatched all the time. So one way of doing it is coming to meetups like this and promoting your job and asking. Actually, in that Slack channel I mentioned, people post their jobs and talk about it, and other people ask about it. So it's a good place to sort of start building that like reputation that you're hiring and you're looking and you want good talent. And the other thing I have to say to you is patience. You're going to probably interview quite a few people, and many of them will not be what you're looking for. But having a clear, like, oh, I want this, and be prepared that your requirements are probably going to change over time. You're probably going to start with, like, I want someone who knows, like, these 50,000 things. 40 of them, I have no idea what they are. And then over time, you'll scale down, and they'll be the core thing that you actually need at the moment. And this process I went through with everyone I've ever hired. Literally, I started with a rock star. No one can fulfill ever this position. To like, oh, I really actually just need a data engineer that does these 3 things. And if I hire him or her, sorry, then I will get there. So it's a process. Give yourself that process. Find someone who's a manager who can help you a little bit figure these things out. It's great to learn from someone who's been through it, really.
Great. Hi there. Thank you all for being here and sharing your perspectives. I'm really interested in how data can be used to solve social and environmental problems. So my question for all of you is, have any of you worked on any projects like that? And if so, how did you get connected with those kinds of projects?
So I did some volunteering. Bit of context, when I moved here 2.5 years ago, I didn't know absolutely anyone. I didn't know that much about data science, so I was trying to do anything to like kind of build up my skills and build up my portfolio. So that's how I started getting involved in some organizations like DataKind. They work with several different charities. They organize either data dives or they have longer term projects that you can work on, and you can learn about the problems that charities are facing or any sort of organizations. I think United Nations also offers e-volunteering, where you can look at some sort of things that they need help with, and you don't need to go anywhere. You can do it from your bedroom. There is Data for Democracy. There are multiple projects that people come up with. There are a lot of people there. I think it's definitely a couple of thousand by now. So there are a lot of people who are involved in all sorts of civic and social things. I know that there are people from like the Council of Boston and all sorts of universities from all over the country. So that's a really great network and a way to get involved. There's something else I wanted to mention. So there's also Delta Analytics that I mentioned. And I think once you join a few of those networks and projects, you can learn about more of them and kind of take it from there.
I would say that the ag tech and the food tech industries have startups and more mature companies that are definitely in that space and are looking to hire all the time. So I can, if you talk to me later, I can give you some names of companies, but I know for a fact that they're trying to hire people in data science. If you have background in it, that's even better. But if not, it's okay too. So there are companies that are actually in this space, and they're for profit like you like. So.
Hi. So first, I have, I guess, a request is people share their names because someone in the audience might have an answer and might want to connect with you, like the person who asked about building a data team at a startup. I've done that. My name is Kate Zimmerman. So please, if you're asking a question, share your name. And two, I was wondering what you look for in value in data leaders, managers, maybe even your bosses.
I feel like I'm answering all the questions. Very bad. Very, very bad. I think it's a little bit my personality, but my manager. I'll talk first about my manager, and then what I look for leads who I manage them. So in my manager, it has to be someone open-minded, willing to be critiqued and be critical. Like Katie mentioned, I have a similar want. I want to be better. So I'd like my manager to know how to say it and not, say to me, oh, you have to learn how to, whatever, speak your mind. And I'm pretty good at that. We're good. We're covered on that one. So someone who's open-minded. I look for, actually, for me, it's really important that my manager, can teach me something, can really teach some skill set that I don't have. It doesn't have to be technical, though I have to admit that my manager has more technical skills than I have in certain directions. So I want to learn from them, so they have to have some aspect that I can learn from. As I was interviewed by companies who, the manager was really nice, and I'm sure I would gotten a lot of freedom to operate, but not learning from them is kind of I still feel like I'm in the beginning of my career, so it can't be that I'm the person who's at the top, knows all. That's not acceptable at this point for me. So someone I can learn from, and someone who has shares certain values with me. So if you haven't ever done this, there's a set of cards. Again, I get no money from this. I have no interest in but there's a set of cards which are called career values. You can Google it. You'll find the first hit. It's these it's kind of ridiculous. It's 50 cards or something like that. You have to sort them and you have to it's kind of a sweet exercise. You should do it. But it forces you to pick some values at the top. And your values might change over time, but the nice thing about that is it's very clear at the end of the exercise. Okay, the most important thing for me is a place where I learn. The second most important thing for me is a place that that I get high salary in. It really does clarify all the values. When I talk to my future boss or my current boss, it is really important for me that we share some of these values, because it will create the culture that I want to have in my team and in my work. So I would look for that. And in leaders who work for me, I think I'm going to repeat the critical thinking. Like, I really want people who are critical thinkers, who can, like, you know, I can talk to them, I can delegate a problem, and I know they'll figure out, okay, step A, do this, step B, do this, like step C. Like, it is actually quite a hard trait to have, but I want people who can do this really effectively over and over again without me micromanaging them, as I don't do that, so that happened.
I'm going to add that I think it also depends where you are in your career. So I'm quite early on, and for me, it was really important to have a manager that was supportive of my growth. I had a manager before where I had to write a case why they should let me go to a conference for 2 days, and I wasn't asking for any money at that point. So after that, I knew I wanted to be somewhere where my manager would support that, and where they would also support me if I wanted to do more public speaking, any sort of thing like that.
So my name is Felicia. I work as a machine learning engineer at Roam Analytics and on NLP projects with clinical text. So I wanted to ask Katie, because you're working in NLP as well, what kind of NLP, natural language processing projects are big at Reddit? Because I can imagine you can do cool stuff like detecting sarcasm from text, predicting like upvotes or downvotes, or maybe making your own project that sends you a meme every day. But I want to know like what happens at Reddit that kind of brings commercial value to Reddit itself as a company.
Yeah, so it's actually early days for NLP at Reddit. I'm actually in the process right now of researching good tools we can use to really build out some of the more building block style pieces of NLP, like a sentiment tool or part of speech tagging, named entity recognition, and that sort of thing. But long term, there are a lot of things we hope to do with it, like a sarcasm detector. That's something that I am hoping to do in the upcoming months. But a lot of what we're trying to do right now is understand user behavior based on the way people talk. Are they people who like memes? Are they people who tend to spam? We're using it for that sort of thing. We want to use it for content recommendation, for understanding what are the types of textual comment we have. We have a lot of ask style comments, but just looking for a question mark is not actually the right way to do it. It's a lot more complex than that. And there's just so many things you can do. You can use it to quantify community health by understanding the way discussion works. It's just an endless rabbit hole you can go down.
In Wellio, we do a lot of NLP at the moment, a little bit of computer vision, but a lot of NLP. It's done for us, it's understanding the culinary space and understanding, for example, being able to recommend food substitution because you have a diet allergy. So really understanding that world of recipes and the world of food and how it interacts with human health. That's kind of where we take a lot of NLP, because think of millions of recipes all over the world, and really understanding how to parse it, how to like really get it to a structured form, because you think about it, it's just from a web, it's completely blob. So structuring these data sets and then learning semantic understanding of the food space. So that you're able to make recommendations for recipes, generate recipes on the fly, like generative models, substitutions for people with certain problems. All of these things are done using real NLP models. So I think it's a pretty neat space to be in and a good skill set to have.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Sivan. I'm a graduate student with UC Berkeley. Hi. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. My question was, can any of you maybe give us a specific example and walk us through working cross-functionally with the other teams at your firm? How do you collaborate together? How do you manage the different interests, the different priorities across different teams? And how do you resolve conflict if there's any? Thank you.
So, because I've been at Medium for a relatively short period of time, I'm going to give you an example from my previous company, 5 Stars. So there, one of the things I worked on was a mobile app. So we released a mobile app for the merchants, and I was involved in the project right from the very beginning. And I was embedded within the product. So I worked with a product manager, designer, and a group of engineers. So I was there right from the very beginning, and obviously the engineering priority is like to build the app. For me, the priority was to make sure that we have all of the tracking in place that we need to. So that caused a lot of conflicts because that's not a big priority for the engineers, but it's a huge priority for me because if we don't have the tracking, then I can't tell people how we're doing. I can't build a single dashboard. I can't do a single presentation. I can't create any metrics. So with things like that, I did a lot of prioritization of, what are the absolutely top things we need to track right from the very beginning and which things are lower priority. There were a lot of conflicts around, for example, designers would have a lot of questions, and non-technical people or people who don't work with data often don't realize that something that they just wonder about could be 3 days of work for you. So it's giving them access to some tools that they can figure stuff out by themselves, but also talking to them, pushing back on some non-urgent things, finding proxies for what they could be trying to answer, but also not thinking blindly about answering the question straight away, but actually getting to the bottom of the business problem they are trying to solve.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I work with product engineering and design, and I really think of a lot of my work as more of a conversation than it is someone asking me for something and me coming to them and delivering something. A lot of times, I think it helps to think of data science and data analytics as rhetoric. It's like writing an essay. You're trying to help them go from start to finish and understand how you arrived at the conclusion you did, so it feels natural to them when they see the result, and they don't feel like you're just telling them what to do. They feel like they came along for the ride and they're your partner.
It's a skill set to know how to resolve these conflicts. So, maybe in the beginning you don't really understand how to do it, but all my career has been with product managers and designer and engineers, always in the middle. I think if you're in a company that really values data science, you're going to be in the middle of that it's not a triangle, that rectangular. It makes it fun, right? Because you're working with all these people and they have diverse skills, and it's awesome. It also makes it challenging because you need to learn to say no really clearly. No, I cannot do that. That is not possible with the data I have. So really clearly, the word no has to be sound. But learning to prioritize is an essential skill set, and saying very clearly, I can deliver the first model, the first version can be delivered by next week, give or take, plus or minus 2. I taught everyone around me plus or minus 2, because I'm a statistician, has to have some boundaries of randomness in it. So learning to prioritize and learning to being able to say quantify how long it's going to take. This, if you want me to deliver this, it's going to take 3 weeks because I haven't touched the data, I haven't looked at it, I don't know what's going to happen. And clearly communicating along the way, I think it helps. Engineers are very close to data science in that sense because they're very organized. I want to know exactly what I have to deliver when I have to deliver it. I think it fails when you say, and the model doesn't work. They're like, what? You said you're going to deliver in 3 weeks. And I'm like, well, the model doesn't work. We have to build a little bit of a different model. So communicating often, a lot, and meeting with these people and explaining, and they'll communicate back with you, and you'll learn how to manage through and with the designers and what's possible and what's not possible. So open communication as much as possible.
Hello, Ilke here. So I have actually one question and one announcement, but I think I will take my question offline because of the time constraint. So how many computer vision researchers are here? Any computer vision working on computer vision problems? None? No announcement then. I thought you said you are working on computer vision problems, so any?
I should not define myself as a computer vision person. Like for me, that's someone who's like 99% of the time working
Oh, gotcha.
on image
Yeah, sure.
problems related to that. I would say that I'm a statistician who knows quite a few things on computer vision and
Okay.
utilize it in my work.
Apologies, I'm changing my question. If any of you here are working on computer vision related problems, then we are organizing the 4th Women in Computer Vision workshop at CVPR, and the submissions are open. And this year we are having proceedings. It's not just the workshop, but we are having proceedings. So I encourage everyone to apply to it, submit your work to it. Thank you.
All right, so before I hand this back to Alessandra, I just wanted to give a big thanks to all of our panelists and hopefully a round of applause for their time tonight.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And we have, or can everyone who's on the analytics team please raise your hand, or who's a recruiter on data science, or so take a look around, everyone. We have plenty of opportunities and openings on the analytics team and the data science team. So if you guys want to mingle and chat with some of these managers and ICs, we would love to tell you a bit more about the opportunities in Lyft and what we're doing. And I hope you guys enjoyed the time, and thanks so much for showing up.